My name is Claire Johnson, and I grew up in a small town called Whitby, nestled in the heart of the English countryside. You know, one of those towns where everyone knows everyone else, where every face is familiar, and even the most intimate secrets are whispered from door to door. My life there was simple, quiet, predictable. Some might even call it mundane. Yet I loved it. I loved the reassuring monotony, the routine that marked my days, far from the hustle and bustle of the big cities. For years, I worked at the local library, surrounded by shelves full of old books, forgotten stories, and the delicate rustling of pages slowly turned by quiet visitors. My days were soft, punctuated by the smile of children coming to borrow a fairy tale, or the soothing conversation of an elderly man reading the newspaper while sipping his coffee in the lounge. I deeply loved this simplicity, this sense of security that each moment spent between these walls provided. But behind this apparent calm, there was a deeply skeptical woman. In truth, I only believed in what I could see or touch. I had grown up watching my mother desperately cling to faith after my father abandoned us. I can still see her, sitting by the window, clutching an old, worn Bible, reciting prayers fervently as if it were the only thing keeping her alive. I had chosen a different path. I believed in myself. I had learned to fix water leaks, change light bulbs, handle every little daily problem without ever asking for help. I didn't really have a choice. To me, relying on someone meant being vulnerable, and vulnerability always led to disappointment. That evening, the night was cool and silent, only disturbed by the wind rustling the leaves in the yard. I had just noticed that the porch light bulb had burned out. With a resigned sigh, I grabbed a new bulb, took my stepladder from the garage, and positioned it under the faulty light. This gesture, I had performed it 1,000 times before, nothing complicated. I climbed slowly up the ladder, feeling the cold and slightly unstable metal beneath my feet when suddenly, everything changed. My foot slipped suddenly, the ladder wobbled, then crashed to the ground in a deafening metallic noise. In an instant, I felt my body fall into the void, as if swept by an uncontrollable force. Time seemed to slow down, each second stretching into eternity as I fell inexorably. Then came the brutal impact against the hard wooden porch. A sharp, terrifying crack echoed through my body. The pain was so intense, so sudden, that my mind went blank. Then nothing. Silence enveloped me completely, as thick and cold as the darkness I was sinking into. I was unable to move, to scream, or even to think. I drifted in an absolute void. I don't know how long this terrifying void lasted. Later, I would be told that my neighbor, John, alerted by the loud noise of the fall, had rushed to me, found me unconscious, and immediately called for help, panicked, seeing that I wasn't responding. When I arrived at the hospital, it seemed like all was lost. I watched as doctors bustled around my still body, not really understanding what I was seeing. My body was there, lying, connected to machines with blinking lights and muffled sounds, but I was already no longer inside. I floated above this unreal scene, detached, watching this race against time to save me, unable to intervene. Then suddenly, it was as though something was pulling me far, far away from here. I was dragged into another place, a deep and endless darkness, as though I had fallen into an endless well. This endless fall plunged me into crushing solitude until a whisper, faint at first, then growing clearer, resonated around me. These voices spoke of me, criticizing my choices, my doubts, my lack of faith. I was overwhelmed by infinite sadness. Until the moment when a light appeared. Faint at first, it gradually grew stronger until it filled the entire space around me. This wasn't just light, but a palpable, living presence, indescribably gentle and warm. A figure slowly emerged from it, glowing, dressed in a garment as radiant as if woven from this very supernatural light. In that precise moment, I knew without a doubt who stood before me. I had never truly believed in him, but there, facing this face radiating with infinite benevolence, I knew it was Jesus. His eyes seemed to read into me with an intensity one couldn't escape. I wanted to speak to him, to ask questions, but no sound left my mouth. I only felt a deep, powerful peace, soothing, dissolving all my fears, all my resistance, all my past certainties. And then, in that celestial presence, he spoke my name with a voice I will never forget the sweetness of. Claire. I shuddered at the sound of that simple word, my soul shaken by this unexpected, intense encounter, shattering all my previous beliefs. Before we continue with the next part of this incredible journey, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to join our wonderful community. If this story has touched you, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a little like. It really helps us spread this message to more people. And don't forget to comment below with your name and the city you're watching from. In the next video, I'll pick a few of you to send a special message. Just imagine your name being spoken out loud in front of thousands of people. Your own moment of fame, warmth, and recognition. I would love to offer you that little moment. See you soon, my dear friends. When he spoke my name, everything in me vibrated with an emotion that is impossible to describe with human words. I stood there, floating in this unknown world, before a brilliant light that completely enveloped me, warming every part of my soul. This place had nothing earthly about it. It was made of a substance I didn't know, yet I felt deeply at home. Claire. My name seemed to echo endlessly, vibrating deep within my being. Words were no longer necessary. That voice carried such absolute, peaceful truth that it calmed every pain, every past fear. I instinctively understood that this moment was unique, that nothing would ever be the same after it. I slowly raised my eyes, intimidated by this luminous presence emanating infinite goodness. I wanted to ask why me, why here, but those thoughts vanished as soon as they appeared. For the instant I mentally formed these questions, he already knew my thoughts. He moved closer, and with each step he took toward me, a little more of my doubts, fears, and regrets faded away. Around us, the scenery began to change gradually. The divine light gently gave way to a majestic landscape, infinitely soft. A horizon bathed in unknown colors, where the blue of the sky delicately mixed with golden, pink, and violet hues, creating a living, supernatural painting. I felt the presence of a deep, perfect peace, as if everything broken within me had been miraculously restored. Then, below us, I distinctly saw Earth. A moving sight. The hospital in London where my body rested, still connected to machines, the medical staff working frantically around me. I saw John, my neighbor, sitting in the waiting room, his eyes red from worry. I also saw my mother, back home in Whitby, her hands trembling as she clutched an old photo of us. She still didn't know what had happened to me, but her soul was already sensing that something had changed. Facing this earthly scene, I felt a profound wave of love, mixed with a certain sadness, as if I was seeing for the first time the fragility and beauty of each human life. Every gesture, every tear, every smile was precious, eternal, infinitely important. Then, he placed a delicate hand on my shoulder. This simple contact triggered a storm of extraordinary visions within me, a flood of images so vivid it was as if they were being directly revealed from heaven itself. I saw specific moments from my life where I had chosen solitude over love, fear over faith, pride over humility. I saw, without judgment but with perfect clarity, every moment I had turned my back on God without even realizing it. And in this same revelation, I also saw the consequences, the invisible chains I had forged around my own heart. It was painful and liberating at the same time. Then the vision widened. This time, I saw thousands of people, unfamiliar faces, lost, desperately searching for something to hold on to. I felt their loneliness, their confusion, their silent suffering, just as I had felt it myself before. Then, amidst this vast crowd, I saw myself. No longer alone or lost, but different, radiant, with an evident mission. To guide them, to bring them new hope, a powerful testimony. I immediately understood what this meant. My life was not over. It was just beginning to take on all its meaning. "You must tell them," he whispered gently, without moving his lips. At these words, a silent question crossed my mind. Could I do it? Could I, Claire, who had always doubted, who had never believed in anything I couldn't prove with my own hands, be capable of bringing this message to the world? But already, I felt something pulling me backward, away from this celestial peace, toward a world I was no longer sure I wanted to return to. An infinite sadness overwhelmed me at the thought of leaving this pure, perfect presence. Before the light completely faded, he locked his gaze with mine, with infinite tenderness, and whispered one last time, "Do not be afraid, Claire. I will always be with you." Then the heavenly scenery became blurred, like a reflection in water suddenly stirred, and I felt myself fall. But this time, I knew exactly where I was going. And just as everything around me turned dark again, a burning, painful sensation suddenly jolted me back into my body. My heart was beating again, with a new intensity. I had returned to life. I slowly opened my eyes, as if it were the first time. The harsh light of the hospital room seemed unreal, almost aggressive compared to the soft and vibrant glow that had surrounded me just moments before. My body, heavy and painful, now felt like a stranger. I could feel every beat of my heart, every difficult breath, but the profound peace I had felt in that other place still vibrated inside me. A nurse, visibly shaken, immediately ran to inform the doctors of my awakening. Voices echoed down the hall, incredulous, amazed. "She's awake. This is impossible, after so much time without oxygen. 8 minutes." I would learn later that for 8 minutes, my heart had stopped beating. But those 8 minutes had been an eternity for me, filled with revelations and absolute truth. Gradually, my physical sensations returned painfully, my stiff body reacting slowly. Yet something had changed inside me forever. A deep, indescribable peace now enveloped my soul with divine softness. I had been dead, but I returned carrying a tremendous secret, a life-altering truth. But the greatest revelation was not my return to life, nor the medical miracle that had the nurses and doctors running to my side. The true revelation lay in what I had seen up there, in that place beyond time, where earthly time no longer mattered. This revelation hit me again with clarity, as pure as crystal. I had not only seen my past, but also a possible future, one filled with hundreds, even thousands, of lost souls seeking the very truth that had just been given to me. I saw them clearly, men, women, young and old, all wandering in doubt, in silent loneliness, suffering without knowing why. This vision was accompanied by a powerful voice that still echoed in my mind, as clear and strong as a call from heaven itself. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. These words resonated within me with a painful clarity. My life, once marked by indifference and cold rationality, had now been assigned a clear, immense purpose: to deliver this message to those who had never heard it or believed it was possible. I had been called back to life, not just for me, but to be a messenger of this supernatural truth, a voice of hope. After several days of observation, I was finally allowed to leave the hospital. I slowly passed through the doors, my body still weak, but my mind surprisingly clear, filled with a new strength. The sun warmed my face, and for the first time, I felt every ray as a precious gift. It was strange how the little things suddenly held immeasurable value after flirting with eternity. Returning to Whitby, the town felt different. The cobblestone streets I had always known now breathed with a more intense life. The old stone houses felt comforting, almost protective. Even the air, scented by the surrounding countryside, smelled sweeter, as if every particle around me had gained a deeper meaning. I was rediscovering everything with a new intensity, like a traveler returning from a very long journey. The first visit I made was naturally to my mother. When she saw me standing at her door, she burst into tears, holding me as never before. She had hardly changed over the past few days, but now I saw her with different eyes. I noticed the gray in her hair, the marks of time on her hands, but most of all, I finally understood the quiet strength of the faith that had carried her all these years. "I prayed so much for you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I gently squeezed her hand, still unable to tell her everything I had experienced. Yet, I knew that the moment would soon come when I would share this miracle with her, the woman who had always believed without ever needing to see. Before we continue with the next part of this incredible journey, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to join our wonderful community. After my return to Whitby, life returned to its usual rhythm, but it now carried a completely new significance. Every morning felt like a miracle, a precious opportunity to share the truth that had been revealed to me during my spiritual journey. However, I knew the task wouldn't be easy. How could I convey to others the immensity of such a profound experience? What words could I use to describe the indescribable? I decided to start with my immediate circle. At the library where I worked, my colleagues had always known me as a rational, pragmatic Claire, not very open to spiritual beliefs. My sudden change naturally piqued their curiosity. I still remember their intrigued looks, discreet smiles, and sometimes even skeptical expressions when they saw me absorbed in a book on spirituality or the Bible during my breaks. But I was not discouraged by their doubts. On the contrary, it only strengthened my desire to help them understand, gently, with patience and love, what I had experienced. I now knew that every soul had its own path to truth, and that my role was simply to open the door. I started with my mother. One evening, sitting in the cozy kitchen, illuminated by the soft golden light of the setting sun, I told her everything. She listened without interrupting me, her eyes slowly filling with tears as I revealed the most intense details of my encounter with Jesus. When I finished, she held me tightly in her arms, as if she had waited her whole life for this exact moment. "I've always known this day would come, my dear," she murmured. "I never stopped believing that one day you would understand too." Her immediate acceptance was a blessing, but I knew that other conversations would be more difficult. My friends, accustomed to a skeptical and independent Claire, struggled to accept that I had become this woman profoundly transformed by a divine revelation. Yet, every time I shared my testimony, even when reactions were mixed, I felt within me an unwavering peace, as if Jesus was beside me, constantly whispering, "I am with you. Do not be afraid." Little by little, my words began to resonate in the hearts around me. Some came to see me privately to confide their own doubts, fears, or secret hopes. I discovered that many people in my town, who appeared outwardly happy and serene, were actually hiding a deep spiritual thirst. Each conversation became an opportunity for me to offer a little of that light I had received as a gift. Weeks and months passed, and what had started as a personal experience gradually became a powerful movement throughout Whitby and even beyond. My testimony had reached more people than I ever thought possible. I received letters, calls, and unexpected visits from people from other parts of England who had come to hear my story directly. Each of these encounters strengthened my commitment and nourished my soul. I was no longer simply Claire, the quiet, rational woman everyone had known. Now, I had become a living symbol of hope and spiritual renewal for countless people who were desperately seeking meaning in their lives. Each day, I discovered more and more about the scope of this incredible mission that heaven had entrusted to me. In my town, the impact of what I had experienced was increasingly felt. Neighbors I barely knew came to see me, sharing their deepest fears, their buried doubts. I listened to their stories with patience and compassion, fully understanding their pain because it had once been mine. I welcomed them without judgment, with all the love I had received up there, in that celestial light. I then realized how this mission was bigger than my own existence. It wasn't just about telling my story, but about guiding those who, like me before, had never believed such an encounter with the divine was possible. I had to walk with them on their spiritual path, illuminating their way, reminding them that even in the darkest of times, there is light waiting to embrace them, a hand always extended toward them. The great trial arrived sooner than I had imagined. One morning, as the sun gently illuminated the fields of Whitby, I received news that would forever change my perception of this mission that I thought I had fully understood. An anonymous letter, quietly placed on my doorstep, contained only these few words: "Your story is false. Stop now, or you will regret it." My heart tightened violently. The threat was clear, but that wasn't what hurt me the most. No. What saddened me deeply was the doubt they were trying to plant in my mind. Was it possible that this incredible experience could be questioned? How could I convince these lost souls that this was real, authentic, profoundly divine? That evening, troubled, I sat alone in the silence of my house. I closed my eyes, searching for the inner voice that had always guided me since my return. Amidst my confused thoughts, one precise memory, clear as crystal, suddenly came to mind. I saw Jesus again, his gentle yet powerful gaze fixed on me, speaking the words that had changed my life forever. "Claire, tell them." It was in that simple phrase that all the truth I needed to continue was found. Slowly, I opened my eyes, now resolved never to let doubt touch me again. This mission wasn't just mine, it was heaven's, and nothing or no one would make me abandon it. From that day forward, my voice became even more assured, more determined. My testimony spread further. I realized one fundamental truth: the greater the light, the harder the darkness tries to extinguish it. But with every attack, I responded with even greater gentleness, with even deeper love. Before we continue with the next part of this incredible journey, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to join our wonderful community.